And on that note, we're live. Welcome everyone to CX Behind the Scenes, or we like to call it CXBS, which means we talk about and delve into topics of CX minus the BS. I'm your host, Carl Shreese, and I manage a small consulting and training business called Horizon CX. And we are a business partner with Question Pro, and our primary offering is an online instructor-led course in the fundamentals of customer experience management, and we call it CX Pro. And like many disciplines, customer experience management is built upon a foundation or basics that in turn helps get you started in the right direction. Through our course and training program, we offer it in partnership with Question Pro, and it's on a monthly schedule. And you can find all those details on the website at www.horizoncx.com. And let me just start by saying this. Customer experience management, like many other disciplines, uses tools and techniques to create those desired business outcomes. And it's important, at least I think so, to keep in mind that those tools don't get you there by themselves. I mean, Mark, when we talk, you and I are both musicians. We know that if you have a guitar, it doesn't mean you can play it, right?
You have a pen, you can't even write.
That's true, right? So it's important to keep in mind that those tools are tools, and they don't get you where you want to be by themselves. You can know how to work the tools, but you may not know how to apply the tools. So that's the essence of the CX Pro program. And I'm very happy and pleased to announce that as of today, the book that I've been writing over the last year called CX Pro, A Practical Guide to the New Customer Experience Manager is available to be pre-ordered through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, probably, I think, what did they tell me, Apple iBooks as well, probably. But anyway, it's out there. So you can find that now. You just look for my name, any one of those sources, and you'll see the book. It does release officially on 18th of July. Before we get started today's program here, I'd like to run, as we do in each of these episodes, a poll. And the poll today is related to our topic, which is around research and design around CX and performance metrics. And so, Paulina, can we get the poll running? See if I can actually engage in that one myself. Yep, I see. Wow, it has me up there as Marblehead. That's interesting. In Newburyport, Massachusetts, but Marblehead's not too far away from me.
I can't join.
Doesn't let you in, Mark?
Pardon?
Not letting you in?
No, it's every time I enter the code, it disappears. Here, well, forget it.
So you already know the poll.
I don't know the results.
Well, you will.
I can't quite see them.
Which aspect of customer experience do you find yourself more involved with? Well, it looks like a tie between both equally or more customer experience management. Quite a bit of I'm unsure. It's moving. All right. I think we've got pretty much everybody's responses in here. It looks like, which aspect of customer experience do you find yourself more involved with? It looks like we're about a tie here for more concerned with customer experience management or both equally. So it's kind of a balance here. Surprising, Mark, those results?
Yeah, I'm surprised there are designers who are also involved with managing. I am quite.
I mean, in theory, it shouldn't necessarily be that way, though.
Well, I wonder what they're designing.
Well, maybe we're going to find out here. Before we get going here, I wanted to ask Mark Mandel, who's here on the program today, if he wouldn't mind giving us a little brief introduction to Question Pro, the company.
Sure. Thanks, Carl. And I have to, before I do so, I want to just acknowledge and to concur that I was given a guitar for a holiday gift about 1.5 years ago, hoping I could learn how to play it. And I can't get my fingers to do the right things on that thing, no matter what I do. And so I'm going to be forever just a beginner, no matter how good the guitar is.
Well, you know what, Mark? Here's my recommendation to you. Don't throw away the guitar, but go
No, it makes great decoration in the living room.
No. Go get a $99 ukulele from Guitar Center and start there, because I'll tell you what, you can master that one so quickly, and see, you build up confidence, right? You get good at something real quick.
Well, I do it on Guitar Hero now. I'm a much better at Guitar Hero.
Anyway.
So Question Pro, I'm Mark Mandel, and I get the privilege of spending some time with some of the smartest folks in the world of customer experience, both on design and management. Question Pro, if you guys don't know the company, is a established player in the world of CX technology and consulting. We focus extensively on a variety of parts of the journey and parts of the solution stack that go deep into VoC, VOE, and even customer journey mapping. We uniquely take elements of feedback and customer journey, and we start to blend these things together in a way where each side becomes valuable to the other, and it becomes a really unique look at your customers and their experiences they're having with you. From a role standpoint, I get to run sales and account management for North America, and it's a fun job, and it's a great company to be here. If you guys are looking for an opportunity to take your VoC or customer journey mapping even to another level, I want to invite you to check out Question Pro, where you'll find us at questionpro.com. And I hope you come take a look at us. We're a pretty cool shop. And with that, thanks, Carl and Mark, for the opportunity to share a little bit.
Thank you, Mark. All right, let's move on here. My special guest today is Mark Michelson. Mark and I have known each other since the early days of CXPA, where we met. Mark and I are also part of a small group of CX-minded folks that meet regularly and have been doing that for over 2 years now. And I'm usually a regular workshop feature in his CX Forums events. And I'm sure Mark is going to say something a little bit more about that later. And as always, I encourage those of you who have chosen to be on the camera on stage today with us to engage in the conversation by either commenting or asking questions as we go along. And those that aren't on camera are still encouraged to comment and question in using the chat feature. Mark has 40 plus years of experience with product, facility, brand, service design, studies, the voice of the customer to understand the customer journey and provide input to design thinking. He's worked with many of the world's leading retail brands, including Google, Microsoft, Target, Walmart, Coca-Cola Company, Kroger, Publix, among many others. Mark has focused the front end of environments as well as online. Since 2009, Mark has focused on using digital research methods to provide better and faster qualitative insights, and quantitative, eliminating the need for travel and allowing customers to share their experiences without bias. Mark is an expert with innovative digital qualitative research methods. Mark does lots of different things, including being a musician like myself. Mark, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Carl.
Let's begin just by having you give us a little more background on yourself and your mission in the world of CX and the world of research.
Sure. I hit on a mission when I was 17 years old. while traveling around busking in Europe. Busking is where you play guitar in the street for money. And there was
I've been
people,
there.
yeah, some people were getting in arguments and stuff, and I just found that I had a knack for helping solve those arguments before they proceeded into fist fights. And so I was reading a book at the time called Think and Grow Rich. I was 17 or so. It said you should have a mission. So I thought about that, and I realized that I had a mission and a knack of helping people understand each other. And I've been on that mission since then. Really started the research company right out of college, and then started up a couple of trade associations as well, particularly in things like mystery shopping. I started the mystery shopping provider association back in '97, and been a big into associations in general. And I believe that we're all smarter than anyone. By that I mean together we're all smarter than we are as individuals. Okay, not that I'm smarter or Carl's smarter or anything like that, but we learn from each other as we go. And to me that's pretty cool. And that led me to start the conference series now that I've been doing across the country to help bring CX people together with other disciplines that are not necessarily acknowledged much by the CX community. So I try to bring in people who don't really know what CX is and don't know what research is to help them all meet each other and cross-pollinate their ideas across disciplines and industries in different markets. And I do it on a local basis. Today I'm in Chicago. I'm sitting in front of a coffee shop and just got here from Atlanta and looking forward to the conversation.
So, Mark, it sounds like research led you to CX versus the other way around. Is that a fair assessment?
CX came along as a name for what I was doing for 30 years, about 10 years, 15 years ago. I remember reading the Experience Economy, when it came out. And even before that, I mean, we knew we were dealing with experiences, but it wasn't called anything other than, marketing research. Let's go find out what customers think about something. It could be anything from a cancer drug to a tractor, and really understanding what it is they need and how they are going to get it. So it wasn't like understanding research like we do now. It was more of really kind of living with the customers and going out into the world and riding in those tractors and going and talking to diets and patients and their families all around the world, building stores, going out into the stores and interviewing people at those stores and observing a lot of people as well as competition. So on a qualitative basis, it's a lot of what we call ethnography, or ethnography is living with the customer. It's more in the schools of anthropology and sociology and psychology than, say, quantitative. A quantitative has generally been something that is run on survey basis because you're dealing with a large number of people, and the reason to go quantitative was always to try to get some measure of predictability behind whatever our hypotheses were that we came up with in the qualitative. So in other words, before you go out and spend $10 million building a store on a certain design or a new tractor or whatever it might be, it helps to make sure that there's a market for it. Yeah. and that's where you get the quant traditionally. That's just traditional research. Along the way, really, it's been interesting to me that I've watched, and I know the people behind a lot of the platforms, and I've watched the platforms change a little bit, actually a lot, to include CX. Okay, and there's a very hard line between marketing research surveys and customer experience research on every platform. Question Pro has two different areas. You have to log in to the survey side of the platform if you're going to reach out to people who are not customers. If you want to try to talk to prospects, if you want to try to quantify something, and if you want to go into deeper analytics, if I want to do stuff like max diff and try to try to, figure out what that's like, or dealing with choice. Choice max diff is one of the conjoint analysis tools. If you're going to do those kind of deeper analytics, you got to be on the survey platform at most of these platforms. And if you're going to do CX, you got to log into the CX side of things. Things are dealt with differently there because it's more transactional. It's not only more transactional, but you're dealing with a known base of people who are your customers, and you're wanting to find out how is it going. Now, to answer the question, how is it going in the past, we would have comment cards, we would have IVR, you'd call up the phone and do that. We'd do mystery shopping. That was a big thing for a long time. People are trained to audit stores. But now a lot of that has gone to sort of an instant survey because of a lot of the ease of communication within the internet. So every time you see a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing, every time you see that, that's CX research. Okay. Every time you see the stars, the smiley faces, or whatever it might be, those are measures that are in real time, transactional measures of what do you feel right now. And it's kind of, I think there's some things that we still kind of misuse, like NPS. That's a loyalty score. That's kind of how you feel after the fact, and maybe over a period of time, but not every day, not every transaction. I think it's kind of a not fair assessment, in my view, especially with all the people giving you a card that says "Give me a 10," at every time you get a car fixed or order something or whatever. But there are really big differences between the two. And so design, to me, is when you really go out with a design team. These people are product designers, they're architects, they are service designers, they're trainers, and they're website designers. So they need the information and the input for things like, ease of use. Is it easy to figure out? Is it filling the need that the customer has? And if they deliver it in a certain way, is it easy enough for the customer to do on their own, or do they have to have it installed, or whatever it might be? There's tons. Every category is different. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you've said a lot so far here. It's good. You mentioned a lot of different things here, and when you're describing the design process here, because that applies to, the world of science, engineering, customer experience. I come out of the world of science. Okay, I have a chemistry background, believe it or not. And you wonder, how did somebody with a background like that get into CX? But a lot of things that I learned way back in the science days, applied to CX. And in fact, when I'm thinking back, when you were talking here, to my first days in CX, before I even ran a survey tool of any sort here, first thing we did was we ran a benchmark study for the organization that I worked for. We wanted to find out how the customers of that business experience doing business with them versus the competition. So we hired a third party to do a benchmark study. And this is stuff that actually, it's all in, I mentioned it earlier about my book that I just wrote that just kind of popped on the market today. There's a whole chapter on design thinking and design process that has systems, aspects to it. But anyway, what we did was we tried to find out how the company fared compared to the competition. And this, again, coming back from the science background, it's like the only variable that changed here was the organization being evaluated, all other things being equal. So to me, that was, I guess I could say I started out in research by doing that study, because I did that before we ever ran a VoC program or designed one. So I don't know, what do you think? If that's a good starting point for CX?
It's funny because VoC as a term, comes through CX. We never really called it VoC, right? We called it consumer research or B2B research or user research or things like that. Customer research. Well, there's customers and there's shoppers. For instance, the mom shopping for the diaper is the shopper. The baby wearing the diaper is the customer. Okay. I mean, there are big differences between shoppers and customers. The actual consumer is the person who has to experience that product and around it too. I mean, I kind of lightheartedly put that out there with diapers, but understanding who you're talking to and making sure you're getting the right people. You know, the thing about you made a point about competition, sort of, bless you. You made a point of comparing yourself or your company to the competition. And that's a big thing with a lot of companies. They, get real competitive and they want to know, how am I doing compared to whoever? And sometimes they may read a book or see a webinar or something and they hear about, oh, gee, the Four Seasons has got a 97, NPS. We need a 97 NPS at our car dealership. It ain't going to happen. Why compare yourself to some other category, number one? And even within your own category, you really can. There's a huge difference even in cars between, say, I don't know, Cadillac and Mercedes and Toyota or Ford. Okay. Compare yourself to who you are. And even better, just take a good close look at your own operations, your own people. How do I compare to myself last year to this year?
Yeah.
That's more important than how do I compare to the guy, down the street.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% with that. There's too much of that going on there. Everybody's comparing one score to the next score. What I was referring to when I did that initial benchmarking study, there was no NPS involved here because I didn't even know what it was at that time. Nobody, few people knew what it was.
Well,
right?
Fred and Bain didn't come out with NPS till later, so.
This wasn't a score-based thing. This was just, how in the course of buying a fire and life safety product, how do the customers of this organization experience that process as opposed to working with, only about 5 competitors in the marketplace at the time. It was a series of questions that were posed to them to evaluate either company A, B, C, D, or E. To give us a handle on where do we stand relative to the competition. But that was kind of a foundational thing that we did.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to slice and dice it, there's a lot of secondary research out there that'll give you your position and the actual, sales figures like that. There's a lot of different data that you can use to triangulate a question, all right? And by that, I mean, I never relied on one method whenever I did a study. It was always very important to look at lots of views. You start on a foundation of what already exists out there in information land, okay? Have they done some research before? Are there secondary research reports? What do they know now? And I'm talking about a client, okay? What does the company know about now? Just a foundation. And now, gosh, Chat GPT will write that up for you in a heartbeat. although it's a few years old, it'll give you a foundation, right? Then you say, okay, I'm going to stand on those shoulders and see what's next. And that's the kind of work that we would do is really kind of out there, will they go here? Will they go there? And you have to be able to show them things too, because they can't really, consumers and people just don't work well with blank piece of paper. You got to give them something to respond to, right? And when you do that kind of stimuli, you want to make sure that you're looking at it from more than one angle. And by that, I mean, I'll give you an example. I can do a survey right now of your favorite color across the board. Okay, what's your, and I'll tell you the numbers that they were maybe, and they change a little bit every year. But if you were to say, what is your favorite color in a survey? And let's say you did 1,000 people. You're going to find that the top colors are going to be blue, they're going to be purple, they're going to be green. Maybe you find a couple of reds and yellows, okay? But that's kind of where it sits. I mean, these are my favorite colors, right? If that's all I ever went by in designing something like cars, all right? Why aren't there more purple cars? Because purple's way up there on the survey. There's not a lot of purple cars because think about who drives a purple car. how would you feel driving a purple car? You know,
Oh,
maybe you really want one, but right now, it's just not. It's not a big thing. I mean, they're coming around some, but is nowhere near the number of people who say they like purple. There's nowhere near that number of cars on the road. So you triangulate it with some qualitative, with some storytelling, with some idea around. Oh wow, I'd like to ride one for a while, but gosh, I don't know. If I could sitting in my front yard, I don't know if I really want that.
Well, Mark, in the write-up for this session over here, you asked a couple of questions, and so I'm going to throw the questions back on you.
Right, sure.
What kinds of research insights are needed? What kinds of research and insights are needed to design? What needed most to design and improve customer experiences? What kinds of research and insights are needed the most to design?
Okay.
And improve?
Let's take design and improve on two different levels. If you're designing from scratch, design something new, you focus on what do people need. So when you're looking at what people need and you're designing from scratch, take for instance something like a smartphone. Did anyone really need a smartphone in 2006? No. We all had our flip phones, our Motorola's, and our little thumb devices, and our separate, iPods or Walkmans or whatever, right? We had our cameras. We didn't really need that. But somehow, Steve Jobs was famous for not doing a lot of research, by the way, but somehow the idea that I could put all these things in one device came about. Okay. And I think that was Steve Jobs being brilliant. But that kind of research is way out there, and that's design research saying, yeah, we can take all these things into one device. All right. Now, that to me would be qualitative largely, and also looking at what is our capability. For instance, I couldn't begin to say, back before airplanes were popular, I couldn't say, hey, how would you feel about flying around in the air? You have to have the capability to get there, and then you have to figure out how to put passengers on it. We're still figuring that out, but putting passengers on a plane, doing it in a way that's humane and safe. That's design research. Okay. Now let's talk about improvements. Step one in improvement is figuring out what needs to be improved. Journey mapping is a good way to do it. I mean, you can do a journey map to find your friction points, to find what are your barriers. Where are people getting stuck in the process of doing business with the company? It could be in ordering, it could be in delivery, it could be in installation, it could be a number of things. Just there's a lot of failures that can happen along the journey to get something done. And we saw the comment about all different kinds of mapping. There's tons of mapping out there beyond journey, tons. There's goal mapping, there's mind mapping, there's task mapping, there's different mapping that is common in stuff like product design. It's very common in stuff like product and in doing UX, understanding the user experience. Mapping is where it's at. I mean, deal with wireframes and things like that. You have to understand where those friction points are. Number one, do the research to figure that out. Then do the research to find out why is it happening, and is it something we can fix, or is it something that's happening globally, like a shortage of boats being able to get materials to land, which happened a few years ago.
You know what, Mark? You mentioned the airline industry, okay? And
yeah,
from a design standpoint, now there's an industry there. I think it is ripe for improvement right there, because how much complaints do we ever hear about airlines? It seems like a nightly occurrence on the news. Something is happening, near misses and stuff like that. But I'm talking about just the simple process of boarding an airplane. That hasn't improved.
There's a lot of experimentation going on every day out there, and we have our friend Scott there that's on the front end of that, right?
Yeah.
I think he was even mentioning something I saw the other day about, hey, wouldn't it be great if we just warn people that, hey, you're not going to make that connection. It's like, we like your itinerary, but if you're trying to catch a ship, whatever he wrote there, and you're landing at 4:00 and your ship's at 6, you're not going to make that connection. Yeah. Just something to early warn people. Yeah, I flew today on Southwest, and I fly on Delta. I'm a 2 million mile member on Delta, and have been a lot, almost every airline. And it's interesting that there are so many different boarding things, and each one's a different experience that levels up to the brand that they're setting their own standards for. Okay, you pay for better experience at some of these airlines like Emirates or Virgin Air or Delta, right? And you don't expect as much when you go on something like a Southwest or Spirit or Frontier. I mean, that's pretty common knowledge, but it's designed that way. Now, you know, there's no frills, but I feel okay because I got a seat and went okay. They figured out how to put people in line, and then they sell the opportunity to get to the front of the line.
But it's interesting because in the chapter on design in my book, we talk about this, and we talk about look at a typical boarding pass on an airplane. I mean, historically, you look at boarding passes, and they're all cryptic. It's hard to find the information on there. One of the things we talk about is how would you redesign a boarding pass to be customer centric? To be very clear about this is your flight, this is where it's going, this is your seat number, a picture of where it is in the airplane, and here's your boarding sequence and stuff like that. Things that actually people could actually see and use. How often do you see that happening in a boarding pass? I don't know. You're holding something up there, Mark. I can't see it. Go ahead. Say something so the video. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
That was my flight information today. Oops, sorry, it went out. That was my flight information. Okay, and then, you can save it to your wallet. Yeah, and then you save it to your wallet, and then it exists there for a little while, and then it disappears. There's a lot of cool things that we could design around to improve. I can't think of anything much that couldn't use some improvement, because it's human. It's life. There's everything ages, everything breaks down at some point. And people are fallible. I mean, we are. We're just it's going to happen. So plan for that. More humans that are stuff. There's so much of a desire to take out the human being in customer experience, and just to put forward a technology solution that will answer the basic questions, but doesn't necessarily solve the problem.
Yeah. Well, here's one for you, Mark. I think I might have even said this on one of my LinkedIn posts here. So I have a granddaughter, and sometimes we go to restaurants, so we'll take her to the restaurant. She's just under 2 years old. What do you find in most restaurants that have kids' menus? What do you see when you see a kids' menu? You see probably not the most healthy choices in selection. And you see prices that make you kind of wonder. They seem to be saying that definition of kid is anyone from 0 to 12 years old. Now, I'll grant you that the 2-year-old is not going to eat the same volume of food as a 12-year-old. But yet you have these standard kind of kids menus if it wasn't just the technological solution, right? Well, we're going to have that. We'll put that on the menu and we'll charge, $10 for French fries or something. And I say, okay, well, that's not very good food choice here. But I think there's the example there of room for improvement across the board here. And again, in restaurants that claim to be family oriented, I don't mean the high end things that, look like fine dining, but.
Well, they also have senior menus.
Well,
they do.
Yeah, I mean, any of those lately, but
IHOP, the 55 plus menu.
They're called appetizers.
Well, there's that too. I think it really just comes down to if the business owner and the people that are involved with a company that sign on to be a part of that company and deliver a certain service. If they just focus on all of their customers' needs, right, and say, "Wow, we've got so many different kind of people in a restaurant. We got so many different kind of people that are on the airplanes, et cetera, right? You got to think about those things, and I think most people are agreeing that we're going to let those who need more boarding time board early because." They're going to need that. They can't be tousled if they're in a wheelchair or carrying a baby or something, I mean, so that happens. That is something that we've fixed probably in the past decade or so, the idea of pre-boarding. And I think that the other people, they get it, I mean, it's like, okay, I don't have a problem with that. So when you do something, you don't want to tick off the rest of your audience either, right? If you're known for something, whatever it is, you can't all of a sudden be something else, because you're going to tick off your base. And we see that happening in today's culture wars all the time. Without getting into branding and all that, but it's obvious to everyone. If you go outside your brand character, you're going to tick off your base. And no one did any research on that one. So, what other questions did we have there?
Well, you know what? I want to make sure that I can cut many more here for you, but I want to make sure that the folks in the room here have a chance to speak up here. I see
by all means.
several faces here. I see Rich. I see Gloria. I see Roberta. Anybody here? Even Mark, the other Mark with the C, could ask a question if he wanted to.
I have a question for you guys, if it's okay. Mark, you had mentioned in one of your comments earlier that while you've done a lot of survey research, you also use other types of data, whether it be business data or perhaps other types of insight data. What are some of the other prevalent top channels of insight-specific data do you pursue outside of maybe just a survey? Where else do you look?
Outside of the voice of the customer?
The direct feedback, outside of a direct feedback channel.
Yeah, I think I look at operational data, number one.
Sure.
I'll look at things like counts. I'll look at things like purchases versus counts. Did someone walk in a store and walk out? Why? If I can figure that out. I look at things like sales figures. If I'm dying all of a sudden, what's going on? And I look at different day parts as well, because every business is different at different times. For instance, a restaurant, breakfast versus lunch and dinner. If you're a fast food operator and you're counting on, let's say, breakfast, right? And you're on the wrong side of the road for people going to work are going this way, but your restaurant's on the other side of the road, and there's no way to get over there, you're going to lose, right? That's some basic stuff right there. That's not necessarily voice driven, but it is something you have to look at. And sometimes they're just blind to those things. You get a company that say, "Oh, it's a great deal on land. Now we're just going to build something here," and they'll come. They are not going to come if they can't get in, and particularly if they're coming for your product at a certain time of day. You look at the drive time traffic, right? I look at communications, see what kind of promises are being made out there. To me, a good experience is when whatever happens, it either meets or exceeds my expectation. And the role of marketing and advertising in general is to increase your expectation so that you want to come and do something with that company, right? And so sometimes there's just a misgauge between marketing and operations, what they're promising and what they can deliver. So I look at those things. I'll look at historical data and see, what's the origin of the company? Where did they start? Is that story still true, or did it get bought out somewhere along the line? And that changed the whole makeup and character of this company that was based on a certain kind of DNA, right? Those kinds of things you have to look at, and if you're not, you're going to miss the bigger picture.
Along the lines of
question, Mark.
Sure, thank you.
And along the lines of Mark's question here, I mean, how about the frontline employee? I think there's a source right there that often gets overlooked.
Absolutely. Dealing with employees is always interesting. I've done quite a bit of work with employee things from the VA to stores like Dollar General and Walmart. Okay. And the thing about when you're doing qualitative interviews with employees face to face, going in the stores with them, getting into a UPS truck and going on a drive with the driver to see what that's like, and talking with them all day long. You have to go in their shoes to really, really understand it. Now, the thing that happens though is often they don't want to say stuff that's going to be risky for them to lose their job. They're going to be more guarded about their comments unless you can really assure them and hold assured that everything is going to be held anonymous. And that's harder and harder in smaller organizations to do that because, someone makes a comment, they're going to say, "Oh, that's Bill. Forget him, man. We all know Bill. He's just, whatever." I hear that so many times when I'm working with companies, and I always actually, Mark, and to your point there, Carl, I start off with talking with the company and their employees. I'll talk to the lower levels first. I go out into the field and work with the folks, talk one-on-one, and just shoot the shit with them. Sorry, but I do. and talk their language, right? And be with them, dress their dress, be as much as you can with them. Then I'll go talk to middle management. Then I'll go to senior, and eventually I'll talk to the CEO and have at many times all these big companies talk to the CEO, walk in and say, "Tell me your story," and it's really just storytelling. It's like, how'd you start the company? What was your vision? Are you doing it? Why did you join this company? What's the plan here? And you'll be surprised the kind of answers you get with those simple questions. And I love the origin story for people in CX in particular, because so many of us come from so many different backgrounds. There's a lot of people that come into CX from the contact center area, a customer service area, a customer support area. And that often gets labeled as the customer experience department. And I've got many clients who have risen up to the rank of, "Oh gosh, now I'm in charge of CX. I'm the CX director. I was just answering the phone, solving their problems, trying to serve, the customer," instead of someone like, say, from marketing or something. I find it's a gap in between those two. So always ask, the origin. How'd you get into this? Why are you doing it? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? What would you change? Those kind of open-ended questions will help you understand a lot more.
Yeah. So I want to give another opportunity here for anyone else on the program here. Either Gloria, Rich, any comments, questions you might want to bring up here to either me or for Mark, my guest.
Oh, well, I've just been absorbed in all this conversation. I have to say, I think almost every thread that I've heard, you could probably do a podcast on, right? So there's a lot going on here, and I feel like just kind of absorbing. But one of the things that I'm taking away from this at a higher level is, I guess it's the business question of why can't we be friends? Why can't we implore upon our businesses to do some very simple things that keep the customer at the heart? So the great example was a boarding pass. As much as I've traveled all over the world, I'm always trying to find my information on my boarding pass. And I'm usually got 3 bags and a computer, and I'm like running through, the airport. So it's such a good example. And then obviously then having a hunch and then measuring the outcome, which is kind of what was alluded to today. So just kind of sorting through the conversation here, having good ideas, having a hunch, doing something that seems reasonable, and then measuring it to make sure you didn't break something that you didn't intend to break. So, this is all like singing beautiful music to me. I don't know what else to say, but I am really excited to know your book released. So congratulations, Carl, for that. And we'll be clamoring to take a look at it.
I appreciate it, because in the chapter on design, you'll find a redesigned boarding pass.
Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Well, I hope you make great progress with the airline industry. And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So I think this was a great rump group, so to speak. What did you intend that we would walk away with? So I want to make sure that I was listening with my keen Tuesday ears and are getting the threads of what you wanted us to take away or what you expected us to take away today.
Well, it's like a painting. I equate it to like a picture, of painting. It's like you take away from it what you perceive from it. Now, Mark, you can answer that question too, specifically on your topic here. But I like to think of, because I get takeaways from all kinds of different things, and you wouldn't even expect. Mark knows this about me because I read about musicians and their view of the world, and I'll get something very CX related out of reading an autobiography of a famous musician. But Mark, what would your take? How would you answer Gloria for that?
Hi, Gloria. I'm in Chicago today.
I know. I can't believe it, and I'm on the north side. I'm in Sauganash right now, if you know. So. Had I known you were here, I would have met you for coffee, and we could have surprised Carl.
I'm here until Thursday. Actually, I don't know if you knew, but I'm having a conference here at City Winery.
Oh, right.
That's
I'm
happening.
Unfortunately,
and, we're having a workshop on Friday.
I was going to attend that, but a very good friend of ours, mine passed away, and I'm speaking. I'm going to Michigan.
Life gets in the way. It's my condolences.
But anyway, I'll catch you next time. And I love City Winery. That's a great, Wicker Park's great.
So, as an example, we do get clues everywhere we go, every day. Okay. And to me, my clue for the day is trying to get into my Airbnb. So I booked this Airbnb and paid for it and everything. And then I go to the app and they say, okay, the host is going to contact you with the address and the codes to get into the property. And I'm like, okay. And I'm waiting, and I still don't have the address or the codes for this property. I have been on the phone and they're like, we can't do anything. And then I call this property and they say, you just download our app. So I download the app, which they sent. Everything's on text. They don't have a human being to talk to. and I'm like, okay, well, now I know the address, but I don't have code to go in the door. And I'm like, oh, they can check your email. And I'm like, I don't have an email from you guys. I don't have one. And it's not that convenient to get in. Can you just send it to me on this text thread? And they won't. And I'm like, how do I get in the property?
We need Alec Dalton on this conversation, but I'll take a swing at it. Just because you have disruptors in the industry doesn't mean it won't be disruptive to CX. So, I mean, it gives Airbnb a new version of disruption. They're supposed to disrupt a very organization-centric business, hospitality in many ways. And now they're disrupting your business travel. So that would be an interesting argument. Disruptor or disrupting ?
It's as a researcher and mystery shopper, I started the MSPA years and years ago. I couldn't go into anywhere without being critical. And I had to learn to be less critical, right? But even now, I feel like I'm constantly testing the edges of customer experience on everything I do. And it helps me to understand the systems that are behind these things and the rules that are put in place that people have to follow to keep their jobs that don't help the customer in any way. Such as, you have to get this from the host.
Oh, that's the difference between compliance. That's the difference between, Carl, I'm so excited because here's a clue for us in our transformation. We now have a component of our organization that came to me for help. Our senior VP in our health solutions area, which is a $360 million annual revenue generating business. They decided they want to go from a compliance-based practice to a strategy of market-driven customer experience. Wow. And so they went out and they got a fancy proposal from, I won't tell you what organization wanted $365,000 to do the initial proposal for a foundational program. So they came to me and I said, I can save you $365,000 and we can start and I'll show you how you can do this and you can get some measurable results. So it's really, going from a compliance to a customer-centric philosophy and organization takes a lot of time, but that's mostly what places need that are just kind of following the book, the checklist, boom, 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 and the poor slobs that are out there in their day-to-day work, and that's what they've been asked to do and don't have the bandwidth to change anything. They're doing what they do really well. It's just not good for the customer.
I see a lot of medical people these days, unfortunately, and almost every one of them are failing on trying to answer any question I have. It could be from what time is my appointment, to what should I bring, to how do I get my medicine, to am I going to have this procedure done? I really, because they have to go through, so many areas. Talk about a broken industry. That one, it needs some help. And
healthcare. Oh yeah.
I'm just unfortunate enough to have to be a customer of that right now.
Well, our friend, I don't know, Carl, you probably know Anita Ciasios from your CXPA days, and she's actually working on a really cool project in Guam. Tried to convince me to fly to Guam and help her out, but she's working on a patient experience improvement program for a small hospital in Guam. There's only 2 hospitals, by the way. And come to find out from just kind of listening to what her needs are and how she's approaching the project, patient experience is similar to customer experience, but it's way different. It's not just different because the clients are different and the outcomes are different. It's just different measures, different institutions to deal with. To me, CXPA is kind of missing the boat. I think they should also support that industry if they wanted to really expand and blow their doors out. I've mentioned that to Greg in just passing, but I'm sure Anita will be showing what she's learned and how much business is there. Wow. For those of you who are consultants, if you can worm your way in there, there's lots of money and they're not being very effective. So there's a lot of room to develop best practices and have notoriety. I think they're looking for the Lou Carbone of patient experience, I think. So it could be any of you.
You hit something funny there, and that is there's so many times that I see where people are trying to apply a certain kind of criteria or pillars of what makes an experience something, right? These 5 or 6 or 4 pillars or whatever the heck it might be. And I got to tell you, every business is different. Every B2B is so different from B2C, for instance. You really can't even apply an NPS to most of these B2B companies. Who do you talk to? The person who pays you? They don't even know what you do.
Well, I think, when you were I can't remember who was speaking at this time, and you were talking about NPS, and the problem for me with NPS is that it's just not actionable. It makes everyone feel great or doesn't make people feel great. And then everybody rallies around something and you hope it changes the number. So
without the follow-up question, why did you give us that number, or how can we improve? It is meaningless.
And unless you can get that information
it's tied to bonuses.
Right.
Well, you know what it is also too. There's a way to get at that information without asking for a number, because I think the numbers are the ones that distract us here. We get so fixated on numbers, but what you want is you want the information behind it rather than the number. The number is an attainment factor, you know. But.
Well, what we ended up doing is, and I think Carl, you know, when we initially created our customer experience transformation foundation in 2017, we looked at that and we looked at customer effort score. And partly because of the Bodine Manning book, we went the customer effort score, but because it was mostly because we wanted something that would be tangible, that we could do something with. And that's really given us a lot of great information. We look at the polarized scores, we audit them, we tie them to our speech analytics, we rate those. And then we also tag a product so that we can go deeper in our audits. And that gives us so much to go on. And so I'm really glad we made that decision.
It's a great point. There's so many, I didn't really touch on the back end of CX metrics, but you know, everyone's always like, you have CSAT, you have CES scores, you have, you know, now you got the new loyalty measures out there. Loyalty is really different from satisfaction. Number one, I go to my grocery store, is the one I go to most, and I've worked for all of them, by the way. I go to Kroger most often, and I fill out their survey, and they ask by department, you know, how satisfied were you with the people? How satisfied were you with the product? How satisfied with the quality? With the cleanliness? Those are basic measures. But then they ask, how likely are you to recommend, you know, our app to anyone? Well, I'm never going to recommend an app to anyone, and ever in real life as a conversation. I'm never really ever going to recommend Kroger to anyone. It's just never going to happen. So if I'm being honest, it's just I have to be honest. I'm like, I'm never going to do that. Now, other people say, oh, you're just being curmudgeonly. And I'm like, well, yeah, probably. But reality is I can't say that I would ever do that. You know, and really, this whole thing started back when they were trying to figure out political polls. And with political polls, it's a projective technique to say, oh, I would recommend this, or I think my neighbor would vote this way. And then they project that and say that's how they really think.
Well, you know, Mark, I like that. It's a good way to conclude here. We are at time here. We're at 57 minutes to our 45-minute program.
The sun's moved on me, so I'm trying to deal with it.
I mean, it's great. I'm glad everybody. Thank you, Gloria, for chiming in here. Mark as well, with Mark with a C. So thank you all for your attention in this topic here. We could probably talk another 2 hours on this thing here. I will remind everyone that
I am giving a workshop on Friday if anyone wants to attend. It's part of CX Forums. It's free. You can go to cxforums.org/CHI23 and you'll see the agenda. And if you want, it's free to attend the workshops on Friday. Carl is doing one at 9 a.m. till 10:30 in the morning Eastern time.
Yes, that's correct.
Then we've got Valerie Peck from Question Pro doing one from 11 until 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then I'll be doing one following that from 1 until 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So come join us. It'll be free, and it's very much, it's 90 minutes, very instructive on how to do things.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for all your insights today. Like I said, we'd probably go for 2 more hours here, but you need to get into your Airbnb here. You got to figure that one out.